Leaving Cody, Wyoming on day 7, the scene was like something out of Red Dawn. Hot air balloons were everywhere, looking ready to crash into trees, light poles, buildings. Fortunately, there were no collisions, explosions, or gunfire, and soon we were outside of town headed east. We were on our way to Devil's Tower today, and the biggest challenge would be crossing the Bighorn Mountains. After reviewing several possible routes in the trailer last night, we'd chosen one that we hoped would be fairly straightforward, not too difficult to climb, and still with some decent scenery. As we first started up the route, a sign at the bottom warned "Not recommended for trailers." They weren't kidding. As we first started to climb, with the truck in first gear and the pedal to the floor, I was doing about 25 miles an hour. Pretty soon the road got steep and the switchbacks were tight. We were down to a crawl, doing about 10 miles an hour. With temperature gauges breaking into the red, we finally found a turnout and were able to pull off to get the excursion cooled down. From this point on, the climb eased a bit, and so did the temperatures. When we reached the top, we found a sign explaining what the problem had been. Now, why wasn't this at the bottom? On the east side of the pass, there was just as many switchbacks. This time it was the brakes overheating instead of the transmission. This problem had a much easier solution. I simply dropped the truck into second gear, maintained a good speed down the hill, and before long we were headed east out on the flat ground making good time. We reached Devil's Tower in early afternoon. There was still plenty of daylight left, so we took off on the loop trail around the tower. This gave the kids some time to burn off a little energy. Corbin decided to make himself a mohawk from burrs that were growing alongside the trail. With a little encouragement from his older siblings, Corbin was convinced to leave his fashionable hairdo in place, in hopes of eliciting some responses from other hikers who were traveling the trail. As we casually strolled past other groups, we would keep our eyes and ears open to see how they might respond. Some would try hard not to stare, and then do a double take after we had passed. Others would just stop him and ask flat out, "What is that in your hair?" After circling the tower once, we paused at the parking lot to enjoy the serenity of the tower on Sturgis weekend from a park bench. Eager to get back to more serene settings, we laced up the boots and headed down the trail once more, this time on a long loop around the tower. Emily took the early lead this time and set a blistering pace. Unknowingly, though, she set herself up to become the butt of a few jokes about the turbulence kicked up by her wildly swinging arms. It was all in good fun, though, and we all had a great workout as we enjoyed the views of the tower and the surrounding countryside in the varying light of the afternoon. With the aerobics out of the way, it was time to go check out the prairie dog town. Heedless of the signs warning of black plague, we coaxed the little varmints to come as near as possible. Hoping that we actually had some food in our outstretched hands, the prairie dogs would inch closer and closer to see what we might be holding out. This close proximity was a little bit nerve-wracking for Corbin, though, who apparently hadn't had his shots yet for black plague. Hoping for some sunset pictures, Allison and I drove to a trailhead and hiked a little ways to a vantage point of the tower. After getting soaked by a sudden downpour, we headed back to the campground to watch the thunder and lightning storm building over the horizon. By nightfall, the storm broke, putting on an impressive display before bedtime.